Today, Disneyland and Disney World are going to face off as we talk about the differences and some of our preferences between the two destinations. This is episode 3. I am Sariah.
I'm Aurora.
And together we're just your average Disney travelers. Now, this is a question that I know that I've been asked a lot, and I know you've been asked at least a little because I've been there when you've been asked. People will ask, which is your favorite, Disney World or Disneyland? Or they'll ask, which is better, Disney World or Disneyland? So what's your answer, first of all? If someone asks you, what do you say?
I really just say I don't have a preference. It really just depends on how long the trip is or how long I'm there. The shorter is Disneyland's better, the longer it is Disney World's better, but I don't have a preference between the two other than that.
Yeah, and I think that for me there used to be a preference, but that I think, things have changed and the parks have both developed, or both destinations have developed a lot, and so for me now that's my answer too. But our history would be Disney World. I used to tell people I liked Disney World better back eons ago, years and years ago, back in the old days, back when my husband and I were first, even right before we were married or when we were early in our marriage and we did our first couple of trips together, when we went to Disneyland, he especially was extremely underwhelmed because he grew up on the East Coast and had been to Disney World. So going from where that Disney World had that big bubble down to Disneyland that was just at the time one teeny tiny little park right in the middle of a city that you could see and hear and smell, and all of that from inside the park was just not magical to him. And he kept saying, he kept referring to what, like Walt Disney would say, it was the neon jungle, and he just was not interested. So when we had kids, his opinion was, why would we invest and spend the time and the money to go to Disneyland when we could just go to Disney World? Let's do it right. So that's why we always started off at Disney World with our girls. But then when I did start selling travel and I was making a big effort to make sure I was more familiar with as many of the destinations as possible, I went to Disneyland, and that totally was different than our experience when we had been dating. It was now like 20 years later, and there are 2 parks, and it was just so much more. And I remember telling my husband, we have to go back. I think you'll change your mind. And so now, we like them both, and it just really depends on how much time we have, depends on what we're going for. But we're going to talk today, we're going to break it down between some certain, just different categories as to what the differences are or what the similarities are, and what your answer might be as to which is better for you will really be determined based on what your priorities are and what your experiences are in these categories and what's important to you. So should we start with the first one?
Yeah, so location. Florida and California are both really hot, pretty much.
Well, and let's say which one is where, just in case there's some non-Disney people out there listening.
So Disneyland's in Anaheim, California, and Disney World's in Orlando, Florida.
Right. And like you were saying about the weather.
Yeah, it's pretty much very hot most of the year. And
sunny,
Yeah, hot, sunny.
I would say mild during winter. So the winters are mild.
Mild, but I feel like the rest of the time, growing up in Washington, it felt like the rest of the time was very hot and warm.
And that's true. If you're anywhere north, going down to the south is always going to be warm. What about the differences, though? If they're both similar as far as a lot of sun, mild winters, what's the main difference that we would say?
And Florida is a lot more humid, and there's lots of thunderstorms during the evenings.
Yeah, afternoon,
evening, in the summer.
In the summer, yeah. So if you're going to go in the summer, you really want to keep that in mind, that the humidity level is very high in Florida and that you will have thunderstorms. It's almost daily. Every now and then they'll skip a day, but really it's pretty much expected daily that in the, I'd say late afternoon or so, you get a quick thunderstorm, and it doesn't last long, but just be aware it's going to come. It will find you. All right, so another big obvious difference is the size difference between Disneyland and Disney World. So at Disneyland, like I said, it used to be one little park. It's bigger now. Disneyland Resort now consists of 2 theme parks as well as the downtown Disney district. And both theme parks, even though they are very compact, they're in actually the Disneyland Resort property, it as a whole is just under 1 square mile. And that is kind of surprising because when you're there, it feels bigger. They have so much packed into it. But yeah, so they have the 2 Disney theme parks that are quite, I would say both are full day parks at least. And then the Disney downtown Disney district, which is their dining and shopping and some entertainment. They have a bowling alley there, and they have live entertainment there frequently too. And then there are 3 hotels. Disneyland has 3 Disney hotels on property, whereas Walt Disney World is about 40 square miles, has 4 theme parks, 2 water parks. What used to be downtown Disney is actually called Disney Springs now, and it's made up of multiple shopping districts. It's quite a bit larger. But so you're going to have a lot more variety, a lot more options for shopping, dining, and entertainment. They have the bowling alley as well, but they also have like movie theaters and things like that. Lots of live entertainment options. And so they also on Disney World property, you're gonna find golf courses, multiple golf courses like PGA Tour golf courses, as well as miniature golf courses. And just lots and lots of options. There are dozens of hotels on Disney property in Walt Disney World. So vast difference in the sizes there. Let's see, what would be next on our list of the differences and similarities?
Well, also, just want to say,
what do you want to comment on?
Disneyland has about like 59,
55.
somewhere around there.
55.
Attractions.
And that's Disneyland Park.
Yeah, Disneyland Park. And that's including like shows, little areas for kids.
Right, so when they say attractions,
rides.
It's not only like the roller coasters or things you get onto ride.
Yeah.
It could be also things like in Toontowns. There is the Donald Duck's boat that you can go and play on, or or it also actually includes the Disney Gallery, which is where they have a lot of artwork. And so it's not only rides, but the attractions that they talk about are just things that you're going to see and do. So it also include the castle walkthrough when you go and look at the dioramas in the Sleeping Beauty castle about the Sleeping Beauty story. So these are considered attractions. So it's not just rides, but there are 55 in the Disneyland park alone. That's not including the California Adventure Park.
No, and then in Magic Kingdom at Disney World, there's about 41 is
how many they
41.
have listed. So even though a lot of times people will compare Disneyland to Magic Kingdom, because they are patterned, they're obviously patterned the same. They're not identical, but there is a noticeable similarity in the way that they're designed and the pattern of it and what they offer. But even though Disneyland is so much smaller than Magic Kingdom, like I said, they really pack in a whole lot of activities and things to see and do. So you're not really feeling like you're missing out. It's not like you're getting the lesser of the two. It's just a little different. And there are definitely things, whether it's attractions or shows or displays, that are unique to both.
Yeah.
Disney World as well as Disneyland. Of course, Disney World, we know that because they have so much more and they have whole parks that are unique to them. But even when you're comparing even just Magic Kingdom even to Disneyland, they have so many things that are unique to each one that make it worth going and seeing and experiencing. But then again, there are also the similarities. So like I said, that was bringing us to
some rides that are both in both parks, but there are slight differences.
Yeah, because they have unique ones, like we said, some that you're only going to find at Disneyland or you're only going to find at Walt Disney World. And then there are some that are pretty dang close to where they're identical, pretty close to being identical. But there are quite a few that are the same type of ride. They're the same story, the same general ride, but that are a little different. And those are the ones that we'll talk about today.
Yeah, today.
Yeah. So do you want to start or do you want me to start?
I can start.
Okay.
So,
pick one that you want to talk on.
I'm going to start with Big Thunder Mountain because that one is one of my favorite rides just overall. And so they used to be pretty much just about the same.
I think that they might run reverse, like
No,
mirroring
not like
each other.
before.
No. I mean, like, I think that the tracks are almost, I want to say, like, the loops and turns might be, like, mirroring each other. That one runs one direction, one runs the other. But other than that, they were identical.
Yeah.
However...
Then Disneyland updated it, and now there is, I don't remember if they changed the track. Did they? I think they did.
They might have made it smoother, but
Yeah.
the biggest thing is some effects.
Yeah, they changed the effects.
And I don't know if we want to give away too many spoilers, but if you haven't been on the Disneyland Big Thunder Mountain Railroad ride, you want to, because there's some special surprises that are a lot of fun, that are now unique to the Disneyland Parks version of that ride.
Yeah.
I will say, though, at Disney World, they did update the queue to that ride. So I think the queue is probably better. Well, I don't even know if one is better than the other, because really at Disneyland there is quite a bit of shade. It's not, even though it is out in the open, it's outside.
Yeah.
It's pretty well shaded, so it's not a horrible queue to be in either. But at Disney World, they upped it a little bit by having some interactive type of activities. I'm not so sure if those are accessible right now during COVID, but, hopefully one day all of what is normal will come back, and if it's not now, hopefully it will be again soon. But anyway, so that's one that had some differences.
Yeah.
Would you say then you prefer, on that ride, you prefer the Disneyland version?
Yeah.
I think so too.
On
because
most of
that.
these, I probably would prefer Disneyland.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny because as I was thinking about that and the whole question, which is better, quote unquote better, it's still, even though it would sound like we would say that Disneyland is because of the attractions that we prefer, the versions of Disneyland, that doesn't necessarily mean it, because there's still so much that Disney World also offers that is unique. In fact, I was really kind of surprised that Aurora said that her preference, that she couldn't pick, that she liked them both, because I knew that both had her favorite rides, except one has a ride that I think Disney World has a favorite ride that Disneyland does not have.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's a favorite at Disneyland that Disney World doesn't have.
Yes, there is.
Oh, is there?
Indiana Jones.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that that's a new favorite. That's a new thing. She was afraid of that ride for a long
I was
time.
terrified of that rite.
And now she loves it. That's right. Okay, so I guess it does balance out, because the one at Disney World is Pandora, right?
Yeah.
Flight of Passage. And so I guess it does. That evens it out. Okay, that makes sense. All right, back to attractions. So she started with the Big Thunder Mountain. I am going to start with my favorite, which is Pirates of the Caribbean.
I love that ride. It's not my favorite, but I love that one.
I do too, and it is. I think it has become my very favorite. But for me, so honestly, if we're at Disney World, I don't have to do it, but if we're at Disneyland, I have to. And again, it's better at Disneyland. I don't know, but the biggest thing for me is that there's an extra dip. There's an extra fall in the Disneyland version, and so if you are more familiar with the Disney World version, that's an extra bonus and little added surprise. When I've been with people who are more familiar with Disney World and then they're at Disneyland maybe for their first time, they're blown. I mean, I know it sounds silly that it's one extra drop, but they're always like, whoa, that's way better. So it's good. And I know that they've done updates to both. I haven't been on the most recent updates at Walt Disney World, so I can't say for sure if they're the same as the ones at Disneyland, but I know that Disneyland's one of the updates they've done recently at the Disneyland Resort have been great.
I really love the updates.
Yeah, me too. And again, we don't want to spoil things, so we're not going to get into the details necessarily, but there have been extra effects, special effects and things. They're constantly improving things like that. That's great. Okay, what's the next one you're going to pick?
Space Mountain. I have not been on the Disney World one.
Because she used to be terrified of this ride too.
I do have reasons for that. But I have recently. I wasn't scared of it. I was just nervous.
Okay.
I'm just saying. But yeah, I went on the Disneyland one multiple times, and so I've been told about the differences.
Yeah, what do you remember are the differences between them that you've been told?
I sometimes get these messed up.
That's okay.
Mixed up, not messed up. But wasn't it that Disney World, the track is easier to see?
Yeah,
Yeah,
again,
okay.
now I haven't been on either for a very long time because this ride makes me so nauseous. And it used to be that the Disney World one made me more nauseous than the Disneyland one because of the difference. But it's been so long, it got to the point where I couldn't do either one. And so it's been so long, I don't know if it's still the same difference. But what it used to be, at least, Walt Disney World would have like lights or things flashing where you could kind of see a little bit of where you're going, which is the reason why my husband, who also sometimes gets nauseous, actually prefers that one, because for him, being able to see where he was heading helped him. For me, it was the opposite, because my mind would think I was going one way and then I'd end up a different way, and it made it worse. So the Walt Disney World version, I believe, has a little bit more effects and stuff going on that are visual that you can. It's still in the dark. It's still very much dark ride. But you get flashes of lights and things that are going by, and I don't know if it really shows the track so much, but it's part of the visual that you're experiencing. Disneyland, is it still pretty much pitch black?
It's not pitch black. If you're actually trying to see the track, which I was the first time, because I like being prepared for drops. Mm-hmm. Like, I just like not having it all of a sudden
Happen to you.
And there's one. One. It's not big, it's small, but it's still.
So it's pretty dark.
Yeah, if you're actually paying attention, you can somewhat predict what's happening.
Then it sounds like it's still pretty similar to when I used to ride them both. And the dark used to help me. It's not enough anymore. I guess I'm getting old and I just can't do that ride at all, ever.
That's pretty sad.
It is very sad, because I used to love the roller coasters so much. I still love them in theory, but they don't love me back. And so I have to limit and be very careful. But anyways, so that is one of them. The other thing about the Space Mountain in Disney World versus Disneyland is, I believe it's Disney World, is it that you go by two? You have two seats?
I think so.
Pretty sure Disneyland, I'm pretty sure, has the 2 seats, and Disney World has the single file.
Yes.
I might have said it wrong the first way.
Yeah, at first I was like, wait.
So
That doesn't sound right.
Yeah. So Disneyland, you can sit 2 by 2. So if you're riding together, you're next to each other. Disney World, it's single file. So I don't know if that's a big difference. To some people, it might be. It might also affect some of the lap situation. Like I can't remember if there's a lap bar on that at all, even.
Yes,
but
there
is. So that could affect that. But
think.
anyway, so all right. So let me see. I will pick. Okay, so my next one I'm gonna pick is the Haunted Mansion. So the facades, you could look this up online. The facades are completely different.
Oh, yes.
They're even in different lands.
I remember the second time I went to Disney World, it was several years after the first time, and I went to Disneyland like at least 2 times before that.
Right.
Probably, maybe, possibly one more.
I don't
time.
remember.
But I remember being like, oh, where's the Haunted Mansion? And you're like,
you didn't recognize it.
You're just like, it's literally right there. I'm like, that's the Haunted Mansion?
Yeah. They do look
very different.
From the outside, they're very different. The rides themselves are pretty much the same, I think. I probably should have done my homework just to be clarified to make sure. But I'm pretty sure that they're about the same as far as the music, the story, the images, the experience.
Does the Disneyland one, not Disneyland, the Disney World one has the guy with the head?
Hatbox.
Yeah,
Hatbox guy? Honestly, I don't know. I remember that coming back to the Disneyland Resort a few years ago. I don't know if it's at the Disney World one.
That might be a slight difference.
It could be. That could be one of the differences. The biggest difference, and the reason why I put this on our list, though, is because I told you Pirates is my favorite, except during the holidays. During the holidays, the Haunted Mansion gets transformed to Haunted Mansion Holidays. It gets an overlay that is from the night before Christmas. And I'm going to be honest, my brother-in-law is going to kill me right now, because that's not my favorite movie. However, I love this version of the ride. The music is so much, I don't know, it's fun. I will say too, if you have kids that are a little bit nervous about getting onto a haunted mansion ride, this is not as scary of a version. So that, and that's not the reason why I necessarily like it more, but I think that is a helpful thing for families that, especially if they're already familiar with the Night Before Christmas story or music, but even if not, it's just a different kind of haunted mansion experience. But I love it. I think that it is so fun. I love that it's, I really, really appreciate that it is a complete overlay for the entire holiday season. It starts for when they're starting to celebrate Halloween, which begins in September and goes all the way through to the end of the year. That's great, but then it reverts back to the traditional haunted mansion because that is such a favorite among so many people. So it kind of gives a little bit of added bonus during the holidays, but did not take away that favorite ride from everybody for the rest of the year. So I really, really like that change. Disney World does not have that. They do not have the makeover, and I don't know why, but that's okay.
Because I don't know, but I feel like with the design on the outside, it makes it a lot easier. I love the decorations on the outside. It matches the building so well, and I
do agree. I agree about that.
It's possible to do it with the other Disney World, but with the exterior, it just doesn't seem like it would work very well, right. Which might be at least part of the reason.
I think you're right about that. Okay, next one. Which one are you going to pick? There's only 2 left.
Yeah. I'm gonna do Small World.
Okay.
So the location of the differences of the rides are very also different.
Yeah. Well, the way they're set up and the way that they're
That's another one that the second time I went to Disney World got me really confused.
Yep. She didn't recognize at first. She was looking for the nice huge facade that Disneyland has.
Yeah.
They have kind of a wannabe, I hate to say this, it kind of is a wannabe version of it in miniature at Disneyland, but it just doesn't come off the same.
Yeah, the way Disney World has it, like, I feel like they have, like, more, it's like they both have that, like, little medieval part in, like, Fantasyland.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like, how to describe it? Disney World, it just seems a bit more, like, that's more the theme, like, Disneyland seems more like fantasy version of medieval, and then, like, Walt Disney World's version is sort of just more medieval. Not that's not.
That's an interesting point of view.
That's what my thought was, because it just seems like there's just like, not that it's like it's a bad thing. It's good because yeah. But I just remember thinking like, oh, this is kind of like just slightly more medieval.
I think that probably you feel that way because it's kind of inside. It's got open air coming through. It's not like you close doors inside, but the queue and everything
I'm talking about the area.
Oh, just the area in general. Oh, I was thinking Small World just because when you get into the Small World, when you enter, it's kind of like I said, it's kind of open to the outside, but you're still inside, and it's a little bit darker, and so it's not as bright and open.
Yeah. It's kind of like, it's just like, it's like under a tent.
It feels like that. It's not really, but it feels like it.
Yeah, it feels like it's part of it under a tent, at least for part of it.
Yeah. And so with Small World, that's one of the initial differences you visually see right away. Yeah. But as far as the ride goes itself,
it seems like it's pretty close to the same.
Pretty much. Pretty close. There might be a couple of minutes difference between the two. One might be, I think, a tad shorter, but they're fairly similar.
But the other thing is that Disneyland has Disney characters sort of hidden throughout the ride, matching with the nation and the culture.
And that was really cool. That was another one of those types of situations that was a little controversial at first. People didn't feel like that was appropriate or it wouldn't fit in.
It was like kind of like selling the Disney idea.
But they did a really good job of making the dolls in the characters in the same feel as those dolls, so that they do fit in, and it makes it actually just a little bit fun.
Yeah. I remember always, like, when I was a little kid, just always, like, looking. I honestly still do it now.
I do, too.
It's just,
I do.
I just always feel like, oh, hey, there's, like, Jasmine, or...
Yeah. So, and once again, this is another ride that gets a makeover during the Christmas season. This one doesn't happen during the Halloween season, but in November early to mid-November. It gets the makeover for Small World. I think they call it It's a Small World Holidays. But the facade gets all the Christmas lights, which is amazing. It's so well done. They have a projection show in the evening.
Is this just also in Disneyland?
Disneyland only. But that all is beautiful and fun to see. You can watch the fireworks from that point, and so if there's a projection show that goes along with the fireworks, which nowadays that's almost always the case, that's projected onto the facade as well. But then inside the ride, it's decked out as well. It's decorated for the holidays of those nations. And they also, in addition to the It's a Small World song, it's kind of blended in with the Jingle Bells song. And it sounds kind of weird at first, except that if you hear it, it doesn't sound weird. It sounds really cool. I like it. And I really enjoy it. I think that's my favorite time of year to ride the It's a Small World ride.
I don't think I've ever been on it when it was actually all decked out for Christmas.
Oh, you have? You have. We've been there before together during the holidays. And you have.
So
you just don't remember.
I don't remember a lot of things.
Yep.
Then it though was only once. I know that. I know it was either. I've only seen it.
That might be true. That might be true. But yes, you have seen it during the holidays, and we liked it.
Yeah.
I love it. So anyway, so that's one of the differences. All right, so the last one we're going to talk about is the Tower of Terror, which used to be, they also still had differences between Disney World and Disneyland, but now the Disneyland one has been reimagined. It isn't even the Tower of Terror anymore, except that it is still the same general ride where you're being dropped and raised up and dropped. But now the overlay is the Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. And it is, which has completely changed it from the Tower of Terror theme. But it is really fun, and I have to be really careful. Like I said, I get nauseous now on these thrill rides, which is awful. Or sometimes they'll give me headaches if it's not nausea, and so it's not fun getting old, people. It's not. Stay young. Keep going to Disneyland and stay young. But anyways, I still, even though I have to be careful about when and how often I ride it, I do enjoy riding it because they've made it to where, and again, this was another hugely controversial. Nobody was on board with them changing this ride, and yet now even everyone I've heard that has been prefers it now because they did such a good job. And one of the things that they did was now there are 6 different possibilities when you're going on that ride. They have different soundtracks to go with.
For each one.
Yeah, for each possibility is a different soundtrack, and each soundtrack has its own different sequence of drops. So it's very difficult now to predict. This was one of the things that, I wouldn't say complaint, but one of the, I guess maybe a little bit of a complaint that people had with this ride in Disneyland previously was that it was always the same exact drop sequence. And so it became very predictable if you rode it a lot, like Rory's sister, Acadia, one time with our cousin Sammy, shout out to them, went on this ride 13 times in one day. And that was almost all they did that day.
Yeah, and it was mostly, was it all one, like right after the other, or was it just?
A lot of it was one right after another between fast passes and standing in line and all that stuff, but they did it 13 times in one day. And they said by the end of the day it was really boring because they knew exactly every drop, wherever it was going to be. And so having it now where it would be much more difficult to predict that because of the 6 different possible sequences you could get. And at Disney World, it is still the Tower of Terror, but it also is one that is, I believe that is not predictable. I think that mixes it up and gives you different sequences, so that keeps that kind of fun, and you never know when you're going to drop.
I've only been on Tower of Terror once when I was 5. My first Disney trip was a big mistake.
I tried to talk her out of it, but she really wanted to try, and she was being so brave. And I sat next to her, and I was pushing on her lap, trying to keep her from doing the floating up.
You weren't even on the ride.
Yes, I was.
No, you were doing something else with Katie. You were doing like American. I just remember there's like a show thing that was like.
Maybe I'm thinking of Acadia.
Yeah,
maybe
because
I'm thinking
it was
of the first
Dad
time Acadia.
with me, and he was saying how he almost got. He was like so scared that he thought I was gonna like have a heart attack, but he was terrified for me.
That's funny.
Yeah, so. I think the advice, if your child wants to go on Tower of Terror, but you're not fully sure that you're ready for it, and if they haven't gone on Splash Mountain yet, probably should do that first.
Or any ride with a big drop.
Yeah, any ride with a big drop. You should do that first, because if they don't like that, or if they're kind of like uneasy about it, then they're not ready.
Aurora has never really liked drops. She's also never
It's
liked,
sort of.
like, when my husband would, like, when she was little, throwing her up in the air and catching her, she hated that. Whereas her big sister loved that. And so she just
I'm getting
never
better now.
really
I'm
liked that.
starting to like it, mostly because I want to like it. And so now I'm just sort of switching the mindset to where, yeah.
She's trying
Which is why I was
more.
nervous about Space Mountain, because it's in the dark. That's why I like to be able to, like, prepare myself for the drops, because ever since Tartar, and also just never really liked being, like, falling.
But now you know
Yeah.
that Space Mountain doesn't really have very big drops, and so you like that, right?
And now sort of want to go on Guardian Galaxies again.
Give it a try.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. It'd be good to try it and see, because you're
And
gonna
sometimes
keep
it's
changing.
just one of those things where you just sort of have to get used to it.
Yeah.
Maybe not really, like, exactly like that, but...
Okay, so the last area, we're actually getting a little longer than I expected on this this podcast, but this episode, we're gonna, I think, go over our 30 minutes. But the last area, and there are still more, and there's more attractions. Obviously, also thinking Dumbo has differences. There's lots of different differences, but those were some of the ones that we wanted to point out. Kind of funny that they're actually the ones that we prefer at Disneyland, because honestly, I prefer the Dumbo at Disney World. So maybe I should mention that now. Dumbo at Disney World, they have changed so much. So now there's 2 going at the same time. So that means that twice as many people, and they can get through the lines, which is great. But the best thing is the queue.
I love the queues on, like, most of the rides, but, like, also that one. I remember just standing there being, like, I was shocked.
So it's almost like, so you go and you get in your line, and they do it different every time. So they might give you a little return thing to tell you to, almost like a restaurant that beeps or whatever and tells you to come back. And they have different ways of doing it now. But basically, you go in, and then there's this tent that's air conditioned that has a huge, it's like a circus theme, of course, because it's Dumbo. And all this play area for the kids, and lots of benches around the perimeter for the parents. And so the kids can run and play and climb and jump and have so much fun while the parents are resting in the air conditioned room with their, sitting down off their feet. And you play while you wait. And then they let you know when it's your turn. And then when you're called and you go on the ride, there's no wait. You just get on the ride and you're done. And I think that's brilliant. I think it's genius. And it's perfect for all these, especially the young families. We had mentioned this was Aurora's very first ride ever at Disney. I think a lot of families, that's their first kids' rides. And so with these, and she wouldn't have had the problem of waiting in line. Of course, then you would have expected all of the rides to have that kind of a queue.
It's probably a good thing that I didn't have that little problem.
That's probably true. But in general, I think that's awesome. And they've done a lot of work, especially at Walt Disney World. That's something that Walt Disney World has done better than Disneyland lately, is having queues that are more interactive and more fun to wait in. And I think that's really, really smart. Unfortunately, Disneyland, again, because of the size, they don't have as much room to work with, and they aren't able to do that as much. Similarly, for the same reason, Peter Pan at Disney World has a great interactive queue.
I love that queue so much.
Yeah, so they're definitely...
shadows.
Yep. You got Tinkerbell flying around, and anyways, it's a lot of fun.
Awesome.
So those are just some. There are still more, and we just don't have time to get into them all. So those are the handful that we picked out. We just had to pause and restart because we realized our battery was about to die, so I had to plug in my camcorder. Okay, so the last area that we were going to mention has to do with things like special events. So holiday parties, festivals, things like that. And they both have them. And they're both having them more and more. I've seen a lot of increase in, even for instance, the festivals that we've seen for a while at Walt Disney World, like Food and Wine, are starting to come to Disneyland as well. But you will still find more at Walt Disney World. They almost perpetually have some sort of festival going on, especially over at Epcot. But they'll have them throughout the year. So they have Flower and Garden, they have the Arts Festival, they've got, like I said, Food and Wine. And so I think there might be one more too I'm missing. But we plan to do episodes that highlight those as well.
Yeah.
We'll just highlight a couple of the differences. The main ones that I think most people are familiar with or interested in are the parties, the holiday parties. And they both have a Halloween party. They're at Disney World, it's called Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party. at Disneyland. I think it's just called Mickey's Halloween Party. And I've always thought that was funny, that I'm like, does that imply it's gonna be scary? But it's not. They're pretty similar. And they are special ticket events, so you have to purchase those tickets separate, and they close down the park at a certain point in the evening on the days of that party, and anyone who doesn't have a ticket to the event, they can switch over to another park if they have a hopper, or they can, whatever, go to downtown Disney or whatever they're going to do that day. But then only the people that have tickets to the party can stay. And there will be like a parade, there'll be fireworks show, they'll have special characters out for the Halloween party. There's trick-or-treating, and that's for all ages, which is a lot of fun. And so they have, those are similar. Similar type, even if they're called slightly different, like the parades and things like that, the shows and things, they're similar. I will say that Walt Disney World has a little bit more, I think, because they've got the Hocus Pocus, I can't remember what they call it, with the sisters from the Hocus Pocus, and they've got, I can't remember the name of their show, but it's a stage show at Cinderella Castle. They don't have that at Disneyland. But for the most part, they're comparable. Now they also have holiday, like a Christmas party at Disney World, and that is, it's Mickey's, oh goodness, Very Merry Christmas Party, and it's another paid ticket event. It's similar that they have special fireworks, special shows, special character meet and greets, special parade, all of that. They have free milk and cookies at certain locations for people, and that's really fun. But at Disneyland, they don't have a special show. They just simply have it available to everybody. So you don't have to have a special ticket for that one. And that it's not quite as elaborate, but they do have a special Christmas parade. They do usually have special Christmas fireworks, as well as over at like Disney's California Adventure Park will have a holiday version of World of Color. But they have snow on Main Street. They don't have the free milk and cookies. They don't have that. But and they might not have quite as many characters out and about like at Disney World does during the parties. But so that I think is my main difference as far as the parties go. Are those two that are the most common and the most sought after usually. Those are the two differences between those destinations. And I do love that at Disneyland, it's just part of your experience. Anyone who goes during the holidays, from like November through December, you get to have the Christmas magic, and it's not an extra ticket. I do like that. But I have been to the Disney World Christmas parties, and those are fun and magical too. I think that if you're going to Disney World and either one, whether for Halloween, Christmas, that it's worth doing if you haven't done it before. If it's something that sounds like it'd be fun for your family, it's really kind of a fun, extra special thing to do. But it is an extra thing, and the prices can get kind of steep. They're adding more and more things to the party events, and so that raises the prices, and so it's something to consider. We haven't as a family really done that yet. The times that I've gone, it's been when I'm there with either my mom or my sister or travel agents or things like that, back when I was selling travel, and so I was only buying one ticket and it wasn't that bad. But when you have a family, it adds up, so you just got to keep that in mind. There are also tours in the parks that are, and again, we can't get into the details of all of them because there's just so much, but there are more tours available over at Walt Disney World, and they're a little bit more variety, especially I'm thinking of Animal Kingdom has some really cool tours that you can take. Again, all of these are a little bit extra to pay for, but can be really interesting and worth it. So if you're looking for individual unique experiences outside of just going to the parks and the differences we already talked about, like with the attractions and things, if tours or parties or special events or festivals are important to you, you'd really want to look up and see what's available at each one, because that could definitely lean you towards one being a preferred destination for you and your family than the other. So that's why I wanted to bring that up, because I think that really can make a huge difference. Some people really, really, really love going at certain times of year specifically because of those events. So yeah. Anything else we want to add?
No.
Well, we really like both. We love going to both, and almost any given day we'd go to either one.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just no matter what, you're gonna have lots of magic, lots of fun, lots of memories. So, anyways, all right. Well,
See you next week.
yeah. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.